Hi, my name is Pascal. Today we're gonna walk through a Rogue RM6 buy guide and why I think that the RM3 is probably the better option for most home gyms. The big question you should ask yourself with the RM6 is, what are you gonna use the backspace for? If you want more details, then go through the description box below where you find links to all of the material that I'm describing here, or check out my other playlists here on YouTube where you will get more detail on everything Rogue. So first of all, why Rogue if you're not already sold on the brand? Basically, they have been constantly improving over the last couple of years and they are just killing it. Yes, they are not the cheapest in the whole world, but if it is a make or buy decision and you want to buy good quality, then buy from Rogue Fitness. They try to source and produce locally in the United States wherever they can. And also they go through multiple iterations of new products before they actually release them and get really the details down and ironed out. So with Rogue, you actually can't do a lot wrong. I also had some customer services experiences myself with them here over in Europe, which were all excellent, I have to say, even during the pandemic. I know some people were let down by Rogue, but that was majorly on delivery issues, in my personal opinion, rather than on the product quality itself. And since then, Rogue has actually expanded, hired a lot more stuff, and they actually are thriving through the pandemic. So it only can get better from here if you are still undecided on whether to get Rogue or not. I have not regretted it once, and I've bought about 20 times from them now. So now the big question of whether you should buy the Rogue RM6 or not, and a bit of guidance from me. I'm standing here in an RM4 and I'm 185 centimeters tall and I weigh about 100 kg. So, and you can see I still have plenty of space in this cage, even though I'm storing my plates on the rack itself. Now, when I started out researching about Rogue, I also fell in love with the RM6 at first because I thought I wouldn't have enough space in the rack when I'd stored the plates on it. But to be honest, I was completely wrong. In the RM4, I have more than plenty of space. I'm a rather big guy. So in powerlifting terms, I would be a heavyweight, not a super heavy, but a heavyweight. So if you are even smaller than me, you know, you don't really need all of that space. Actually, most of the home gyms and garage gyms that I see regret buying such a 6-post big rack and downsize in a second or third iteration of their gym. So my tip would be to look in more detail into the RM3 or the RM4 and ditch the RM6 out of your shopping cart unless you are really sure what you're doing with the back part, with the basically the RM3 that is attached to the RM4 to build an RM6. If you want to put a Rhino belt squat in there, good for you, because that is really an excellent piece of equipment to get up the volume for your legs. That is also the next upgrade that I will do. But if you're concerned about storage, then this is really some of the most expensive storage for kettlebells and plates that you can possibly get. So if you're not buying for a commercial gym and all you're gonna do is throw a bunch of plates and kettlebells in the back of the RM6, then please don't do that and save yourself the money for some cooler upgrades that will I go also through in this video. So let's talk about one of the first options for your Rogue RM6, and that is color. So what you see here is the traditional Rogue black, the matte black that they had from the beginning. Also, most of the color options will actually put you back the same amount of money. So it doesn't matter whether you want to get blue, red, orange, whatever is available. And what is also good with Rogue is Rogue have actually perfected the producing process of getting the color on. Because basically a lot of other people are actually copying what Rogue is doing with their finishes on their color, with their powder coating and e-coatings, and they're experimenting a lot here, Cerakote coating. So you will get a really nice finish on your color from Rogue, whereas other vendors are a bit more hit and miss because they haven't been doing it as long and haven't perfected that process as good as Rogue. Now for the colors, there are two options that will cost more. One is the stainless steel option. So the stainless steel option, in my opinion, is really only for the people who want to show off that they have a lot of money. Sorry to say, because you're actually adding about 2,000 euros / dollars to the base price, and it's not really necessary unless you will really put the rack to a lot of abuse, maybe also have quite a bit of moisture in your gym where you place it. Then stainless steel might be a good option. However, maybe fix the moisture issue before you put equipment in there for thousands of bucks. I think that is the better way of thinking about it. The other option that costs a bit more than the base price is the Cerakote coating. Now the Cerakote coating, if you get it, then also get a barbell with the same coating, because the stainless steel bar is way more likely to eat into that coating. Now last tips on color. So the black one will show the markings from a barbell more, because whenever you scratch it actually with a barbell or with some kind of metal over time, you know, it actually will reflect the steel beneath it. If you get white, then you don't have as much the scratch problem, but you will get dust, and the dust will be a lot more visible actually on the white ones. And the other colors, you know, I can't really comment on, but there are plenty of videos out there where you find the red and blue versions. So that about color. If you want a great color finish and a great palette to choose from, then Rogue is possibly one of the best options out there, because they've been doing it the longest and they keep experimenting to make the process even better. The next option to choose would be the height of your rack. Personally, I would recommend that you go as tall as you can possibly fit into your garage gym or home gym, because it's not really a considerable extra amount of money on these racks, but it's almost impossible to go higher once you've bought it rather than lower. If you are concerned, you know, you can always get the cross members a bit lower and play around with the height once you have the tallest rack that you can possibly get. The only caveat around that is please measure the ceiling height. A lot of people forget that. They only measure the floors and then they arrange everything, and then they completely forget that there might be the garage mechanics or, you know, an AC and air conditioning somewhere in the room that is blocking the height of the rack. And it's really painful if you can't fit the rack in that you've bought and then have to saw it off when you got a Rogue rack. And I have seen stories about that. So please don't make that mistake. So the option on the RM6, go as tall as you can possibly can with your ceiling, because it's not really that much extra money. I'm personally 185 centimeters tall. I got the 91 because in my first house where I got the rack, the ceilings were rather low. Where if you get the 91, you know, it's not really great for kipping if that is what you want to do. But you know, something's gotta give. But if I could redo it, I would actually get a taller rack. So the next option you can choose for your RM6 rack is the finish of the nuts and bolts. Now what I have in hand here is the bright zinc finish. You can also get the black finish, which is then basically your coating over these nuts and bolts. Personally, I don't think it makes that much of a difference which one you get. So get whatever you think looks cooler with the color of the rack that you are getting, and then just move on to the next options and don't put too much thought into that one. The next thing you can choose is the rear cross member, which you see right above me. Now you will have three options there. You will have the beam with gusset, the Rogue nameplate, and also the single pull-up bar. Of course, you can also get other things for customization, but out of the three that are standard when you're buying the Rogue RM6, I personally would recommend the beam with gusset without getting the nameplate that you see here. And especially if you are buying for home gym purposes. Now, I personally want to represent a bit more because I have this YouTube channel, so I would like people to know that I have a Rogue Fitness rack. If you're buying commercially, you might also want to show that you are actually investing in the best for your clients, or you even want to get the nameplate individualized for your specific college or team, or, you know, your wife's name, whatever you want to get on that nameplate. But for most people, just get the beam with the gusset, because then you have not the nameplate in the way for doing exercises on the back, and then you can use the top bit up here for extra attachments from Rogue, for climbing, maybe a crown pull-up bar. You also can consider, if you get a beam with gusset, also in the front rather than a socket pull-up bar, which also gives you more options for attachments. So out of the options that you will find when you're configuring your Rogue RM6, I personally would recommend the beam with gusset. The next option to talk about are the J-cups. Now, Rogue gives you three different options, the standard ones, then the 1-inch and the 2-inch ones. Now, these are the standards J-cups that come with the Rogue RM6. Now, I will get a bit closer, and you see that these are actually quite beat up already after a year of usage. Now, I personally train 5 times a week, 4 times to 5 times a week. I do a lot of barbell work in the rack, and what I personally would recommend is the more aggressive the barbell you will be getting, then the thicker the J-cups should be, so that they're not as beaten up as my ones. So for example, there's the new Rogue Ohio Power Bar Agro, where you can actually choose the different knurlings, which is the bar that I would be getting if I had a redo on my initial purchase. And for that, I would definitely recommend that you get one of the thicker J-cups. Of course, if you wanted to save money on something, the J-cups are not that essential, so you could also get just the basic option and then just live with it, that you will actually maybe have a bit on metal with the most aggressive bars. For the safety options with the Rogue RM3, you have also 3 options. That is the pin and pipe one, the strap one, and the flip down safeties here. Now, personally, I wouldn't have gotten the flip down safeties, but when I was buying through the pandemic, that was actually the only option available, funnily enough, which is also the most expensive one. So I can see why not everybody might want to go with the flip down safeties. So if you're buying for your home gym and you're not doing a lot of rack pulls, you're not doing a lot of pin squats and a lot of pin bench presses and all that kind of West Side Method stuff, then I think the pin and pipe solution is more than enough. And yes, of course, you can get to Eric Bugenhagen's channel and you see that, you know, he's using and abusing his pin and pipes, you know, to the max. Another thing to mention is also, if you get the pin and pipes, make sure that you have enough space in the front of the rack to actually feed them in and out. This is also a bonus with the flip down safeties. They just flip in, so you can actually use them in a more narrow space. And also, if you are getting the flip down safeties, then also put the utility seat from Rogue in the US into the basket, because I think that is really, really good value for money. I couldn't do it over here in Europe because the utility seat wasn't available, is still not available here, but over in the States I would totally do that and get the utility seat with the flip down safeties. For the straps, now if you like straps, get them. I personally don't like straps because they just behave a bit unpredictably, and also it's way easier to actually set them up the wrong way, because you can actually click them in at different heights without noticing, whereas with the flip down safeties that is impossible. With the pin and pipe system it's a bit harder, And if you are buying commercially your RM6, then don't get the safety straps at all. Now why? Because they're very easy to steal. You can just roll them up and put them into your bag and then they're gone, and then you don't have these safety straps anymore. So if you're buying commercially, get the pin and pipes or the flip down safeties, because people won't just go past the reception area with a flip down safety on their back and saying, yeah, I'm just getting out here. Although that's how some of the most famous paintings in the world were stolen, that as a side note. But anyway, if you're buying commercially, don't get the safety straps because they're easy to lose / steal. Last thing to get for your Rogue RM6, which you should definitely put into the basket, are storage pins. Now you see 2 behind me here. My recommendation would be that you get 4 storage pins that are long. Don't bother with the short ones. You will get up to about 500 kg on them with the black training plates. With steel plates it would be even more. So I don't personally think that you need 6 storage pins as often advertised within the Rogue marketing pictures, because with the 4 it's plenty in my personal opinion. But don't forget to put them in the basket, because otherwise you'll just kick yourself, unless of course you get in a plate tree. That's a different kind of setup. But if you're buying a Rogue rack and you intend to put the plates on the rack, then put the storage pins into your basket. They're a separate item. They don't come with the shipment of the rack. And that concludes the buy guide for the basic Rogue RM6 and why I think that the RM3 or RM4 would be a better option. And I will now walk you through some consideration of accessories and why I would get some of them and why I would get others. First accessory for an RM6 that a lot of people will look at are the LT1 50 cal lever arms. Now if you're considering to put that in your shopping cart, get the short ones rather than the long ones when based on my research. Now why is that? Because the short ones can actually also be used inside the rack, whereas the long ones can only be used outside the rack. As space in most home gym comes at a premium, you don't necessarily want the lever arms to protrude even further out from the rack. You can do most of the other exercises and maybe even more inside the rack with the short lever arms. So if you are getting the LT1 lever arms, then get the short ones. For who would these make sense? I think they make sense for football players, rugby players, because then you can do these kind of, pushes where you can get your full weight behind the movement and be explosive. And it also makes sense if you do a lot of strongman training, because you can actually simulate a Viking press and car deadlifts with these lever arms. But for most people, I personally think that a landmine with an extra barbell makes a lot more sense for a home gym than getting the LT1 lever arms. Now, why am I saying that? If you are getting the LT1 lever arms, they're about $1,000. They're not cheap at all. If you get the Landmine 2.0 with a barbell, that's basically kind of the same price. You can move in more directions. You can do most of the movements that you would do with the LT1, bar the car deadlift and the Viking press, although then you could get 2 landmines and play around with that a little. Plus you have an extra barbell, which gives you a lot more flexibility on getting a deadlift barbell, and also you don't have to move around stuff as much. And you could also train at the same time with someone else. So I think the solution with a landmine and an extra barbell is way more versatile and even more cost efficient than the LT1 with a few very special functional applications. But that's just my 2 pence on them. And that is why I steered completely clear of the LT1 for any kind of upgrades that I will be doing, even though I think the engineering on how the whole leverage system works is absolutely genius. But what good does that do for me, you know, if I don't really need that kind of workout spectrum that they deliver for quite a dear price. The next thing a lot of people look at when they first put an RM6 together is the Rogue Monster Slinger. Now, I personally would say in most instances stay clear of the Slinger. It didn't really get a lot of good reviews. It doesn't really work as intended. Rogue didn't really think the whole thing through. There's only one exception for the Slinger where it does make a lot of sense, and that is if you are getting it in combination with a Rogue belt Rhino. So if you get the Rhino, then you can actually use the Slinger and Crossmember on the top for the RM3. So, you know, you have your RM6, then in the back you have the Rhino drop in, and then on the top you get another Crossmember in, put a Slinger on top of that, and then basically you have a lat pull machine for only a little bit of extra investment. That is really a good upgrade if you're getting the Rhino belt squat drop in anyway with the RM6, which I think is also one of the few applications of the RM6 that really makes sense. Otherwise, stay clear of the Slinger. If you wanted to get something lat pull wise, either get the Rogue bands, monster bands, which are great and are even a bit more versatile than the Slinger. If you're having the space, then look into the LT1 lat pull machine, or the newer lat pulls of Rogue, because basically what they've done there is they first built the Slinger, sold that as a separate kind of entity, but that with the Slinger they actually figured out the mechanics to then build the newer lat pull machine that you see at Rogue. So you might as well go for that one if you have the space and the money, but otherwise stay clear of the Slinger and get some of these Sput Ink kind of things, or, you know, get a bit more creative for the pulley systems. Last accessory I will talk about is the Rogue Rhino belt. And the Rogue Rhino belt squat is the next big thing that I'm gonna get. If you want to be successful in powerlifting, you will need strong legs. That is really the main driver of that. So if you are getting into strong legs, get the Rhino belt squat, especially when you're getting older. I'm approaching 37 now, and to be honest, to go through sets of 10s with 140 on my back doesn't necessarily do me any favors anymore. In your 20s, fair enough, you know, I mean, squat till you drop. But if you're getting, you know, out of your 20s and you're getting a bit older, you want to protect your back a little bit more. And the Rhino belt squat is the perfect kind of machine to get a lot of leg volume in without further ruining your shoulders and your lower back. So that is why I think that is a great machine with a lot of value. Unfortunately, of course, it is as highly priced as an entire rack, so of course it will not be an option for everyone, but I think the Rogue Rhino belt squat makes a lot more sense for an RM6 as an upgrade than the LT1 arms, and the LT1 arms are about half the price of the Rhino, so you might as well stretch to the Rhino and just skip the LT1 in your build, depending on what your kind of budget is. Of course, get it all if you want, you know, sky is the limit, but I'd take the Rhino belt squat any day over an LT1 for an RM6 build. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and tell your friends about my channel, and if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments section below. Have a nice day and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.